also a little bit of a screaming example of middle child syndrome, which just means I love doing this job. Sometimes a middle child...
I'm a bit perfectionist about it too.
Very.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I've got 3 kids and a middle child is, yeah.
Don't neglect them for a while. Otherwise, it might
He lives at home for free and he's 27. Come on, he's not being neglected.
Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a reason for it. I'm not saying I'm not pointing fingers, but sometimes the middle child...
I tried to kick him out several times.
Okay. Well, myself, I can speak only about myself.
Yes.
Then it may perhaps didn't get as much attention growing up as my younger sister and older brother. And I did grow up to be an attention-seeking maniac as an adult, which is why I love doing this job. But I won't be talking about myself for the next 3 hours. I will be talking about the beautiful history of the neighborhoods we'll be biking through. And good on you guys. First off, for booking a bicycle tour. Way better to see the city, of course, on a bicycle, right? I say any European city, but especially Amsterdam. And that's what I'm gonna do with you guys. I'm gonna bring you guys away from the chaotic city center of Amsterdam and bring you guys to the off the beaten path, quieter neighbors, less tourism, talk a lot about the history. I hope you guys are all history nerds. History nerds? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I got 1 thumbs up, 1 yes. Very good. We'll see. We'll see. We'll feel it out. Okay. I can shorten a lot of the history stuff, but to do that safely, I want to ask you guys to follow a couple of patterns, okay? A little safety briefing before we get started. First off, I'm going to ask you guys to bike single file line as far on the right side of the road as possible, okay? Right side of the road. And one very complicated rule. This rule is so complex. The people that live here, the locals, they're incapable of following this one. So open up your ears for this one. Anytime you guys see a red light, you stop. So you guys will see the locals, they'll just book it on a red light. Ignore the locals, they know what they're doing. But I'm gonna ask you guys, if we encounter at these intersections a stoplight, please stop at yellow for me, okay? Even if I cross or a few people cross in the green and it turns yellow, stop at yellow for me, that would be amazing. And some of these intersections that do not have stoplights, you guys will see big white triangles pointing at you, the shark teeth. The shark teeth that point at you means that we have to yield, we have to stop and give precedence at the crossing before we cross, okay? So we wait, if we have the shark teeth pointing at us, we wait for the cyclists, the vehicles before we cross. Very important to do that. But any intersection we cross, whether it has shark teeth or no shark teeth, we always go both ways before crossing. Never blindly follow me or the person in front of you. I'll be biking at safe speed, it'll be easy to do that. And hand signals, turning left, turning right. When I raise my hand like this, I'm slowing down and stopping. And I want you guys to try and maintain, when I slow down and stop, the single file line pattern as far on the right side of the road as possible. When I do this and stop, please, it will be very helpful if you also, while you're on your bicycle, you find a spot where you can put your foot on the sidewalk. That way, we leave the roadway as free as possible for the vehicles and the cyclists. And that's about it for the safety briefing. The only other thing I ask you guys to do, as you bike around from one stop to the other, I know it's the first time you're biking in Amsterdam, try and soak in the ambiance, the architecture, the environment. I know it might be a little difficult, but you'll notice that many of these canal homes, aside from the fact that some of them look like they're about to collapse right on top of us, like that one right there, you'll notice the dancing houses of Amsterdam. You'll also notice on the facade of many of these buildings, the canal homes, you'll notice the year was completed. You may notice a little stone relief sculpture between the first and second floor that actually indicates what the family used to specialize in back in the 17th and 18th centuries, because these were all single family homes and businesses back then. You may see a little piece of bread, means it was a bakery back then. Basket of laundry, you could guess, they were cleaning laundry. If you see a few storks, it means it was a family of midwives that used to live there. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. But as you do it, as you soak it in, please always keep your fingers on the brakes so you don't crash into the person in front of you. That's very useful information. And even more useful information, you guys all have a 3-gear shift on the right side of the handlebar. You twist it backwards and forwards to switch gears. Play with it, get used to it. You do want to switch to first gear whenever we bike up the mountains of Amsterdam. We have very steep mountains here, guys. Some of the canal bridges are so steep, if you don't switch to first gear going up the bridge, you're going to lose momentum halfway up, you're going to fall over. You don't want to do that. I've seen that happen. Switch to first gear up any incline, any bridge. Even where at a standstill, you can already switch to first gear. These are very nice gears. So at first gear already, it'll help you push off easier. But one thing I can't stress enough, never, ever, ever keep your bicycle in first gear. Always switch back to second gear. It's the best gear. It'll help you keep up with the rest of the group. Yeah, that's about it. Any questions? Any of you guys haven't biked in a long time, you're feeling a little uneasy. Some of the streets are bicycle lanes, some of the streets are shared with vehicles. They'll be driving very slowly past us sometimes. Please, if you're feeling a little uneasy, get right up behind me. The first few spots behind me are the best spots. It'll keep you safe, keep the group safe. It'll also help me set the pace, so please do that. And whoever happens to be in the very back of the group, I might do a few hand signals to you guys who are in the very back of the group. They're very nice, kind hand signals, not the Italian hand signals you guys know about. I might do a nice thumbs up, for example. Whoever's in the very back of the group, you don't have to be a seasoned cyclist, but please give me a thumbs up back. That would be very helpful. Let's get started, guys.
Can I ask one question? What does that there, and then, yeah.
Okay.
Jarig zijn we op één plek.
Right here, guys, go ahead if you don't mind. Try and park your bicycles right parallel to mine.
Okay.
If you guys don't mind parking your bicycles parallel one after the other, nice and neat and straight, and the same direction is also very useful. It doesn't have to be perfect, but once you get your kick space, they just leave their bicycles there. And some of the locals even like to park their bikes inside the canals. Have you guys ever heard of magnet fishing? A lot of nice little treasures in these canals, shopping carts, scooters, e-bikes, but I'm going to ask you guys to please not park your bikes like the locals, and maybe I'm going to ask you guys to park your bicycles in a little more German fashion. How does that sound? Nice and neat and organized. Maybe next up a little bit tighter in here, but this is not bad. And we stop and then we lock our bicycles. The way you do this, you guys see the key that's hanging off the side of the bicycle, right? The way you, first off, we're not going to be using a chain, okay? So ignore the chain, but on the opposite side of the key, there's a little black lever. So you guys need to look for that little black lever hidden underneath the chain. Little black thing that's sticking out of the hind wheel lock. The way you close that hind wheel lock is with one hand. You have to twist the key backwards. You slightly twist the key backwards, and simultaneously you push that lever all the way down. Once the lever's all the way down, you can untwist the key, and the key should just slide out. So twist the key backwards, push that lever all the way down. You got it, and then you untwist and slide it out. A little bit of a puzzle, but it looks like you guys, that was very quick. That was quick and easy, guys. That must be a record. I don't think, most of you guys take about 2-3 minutes to do that. That was very nice. Make sure you keep your key on your person, and go ahead and follow me here.
Forbidden to park bicycles.
Where? Oh, because there's this is a sign because they're going to do road works or bridge works.
So it's at a particular time.
So they're warning everyone to remove them before this date, otherwise they're going to sequester them. But also, it's not allowed at the same time. But you know, Amsterdam or the Netherlands is, you know, somewhere in between. I'd say I like to liken the rule following and the rigidness somewhere in between Germany and Italy, where Italy is pretty much lawless. But I like that flexibility. You know, there are rules; they are mostly followed, but they're not crazy about enforcing them.
Just guidelines, rather.
Exactly, guidelines. And no one is hurt. It's like no harm, no foul, you know? Kind of, sort of. I like that. If you guys don't mind forming a semicircle right here around me, I gotta give, in my first stop, a very brief little crash course in Amsterdam's 1,000-year history. My first stop, I'm gonna talk about the 3 events that caused an injection of population into this region, that put Amsterdam on the map as a city we all recognize today. More like 2 events that caused an injection. The 3rd event caused more of an explosion of population. And this explosion of population, very much related to this neighborhood that surrounds us, very much related to these 2 canals, this very important junction of 2 important canals. And if you survive my little crash course, I will then bring you guys into one of my favorite little hidden gems of the city, the quiet little inner courtyard of that building down there, which is quite the important building with quite the American connection, because that building is the West Indies Company, the West Indies House, famous for having established some of the very first and most important colonies in the North American continent, such as New Amsterdam. You guys may have heard of New Amsterdam, or New York City as we recognize it today. Pretty cool stuff. We'll talk about the Dutch East Indies Company and Dutch West Indies Company in there, and then we'll hop on our bikes and go. But the history of Amsterdam, 1,000 years is relatively young for a European city at least. And the real beginning, the story of Amsterdam's foundation actually begins in 1275. 1275, a very, very important little tax document pops up in 1275 that says 2 extremely important things, okay? 1275, this little tax, you guys may be familiar, I don't know if you guys have heard of some of the stereotypes about Dutch people being very, very frugal. There's a lot of sayings in the English lexicon that talk about how cheap and stingy the Dutch are, like going Dutch, for example. You guys know,
Yeah.
that's a famous one, right? There's a great number of sayings that talk about how very cheap and stingy. That's a very honest way, ugly way to say it. Very cheap and stingy. But another stereotype that I find fascinating, Dutch people very, very good at finding creative ways to not pay taxes, okay? Because in 1275, this little foundation document says 2 important things. First off, this document names the settlers of this region for the very first time on any written document. It actually names them the settlers of the Amsterdam, which translates to the dam on the Amstel River. Right where Dam Square in the city center is, that's where the first dam was built, and somewhere in between 1170 and 1275, in that 100-year period. And the reason they built it is to further facilitate the process of land reclamation. In 1170, there was a huge flood. It actually opened up the river Amstel, okay? Created a true flow of water there. And soon after this event happened, a few fishermen that were familiar with this region began the process of land reclamation. But their efforts would always become ruined whenever they would reclaim the very fertile peatlands, very carbon-rich, very fertile peatland from the marshes. This is all extended marshes 1,000 years ago. Their efforts would always become ruined by the tides and storms, which is why they built a dam on the Amstel River. So this document, 1275, says for the first time they built this dam in this period to further facilitate the process of land reclamation. But the second little detail is the fact that this was a tax break for these few settlers of the Amsterdam. It allowed
Yeah, they're going with bus.
very surprisingly few. You would be surprised by how few buildings that we walk around the city center are heritage protected by the city. The onus actually goes to the property owner. If they want to preserve the original brickwork or the style, onus goes on them. It's their investment decision. They actually can, I think that there's some regulations that you can't build a complete eyesore, of course, but it's interesting. It's interesting how it's very expensive to do that. And it makes sense to preserve the original facade for financial reasons as well, because then it makes it a lot more, let's say, beautiful, easier to sell, easier to rent, I think. But guys, right here, we're in a very, very, very quiet little inner courtyard of the Dutch West Indies Company. And the Dutch West Indies Company was a branch of the Dutch East Indies Company, the Dutch West Indies Company. The Dutch East Indies Company, which is on the east side of the city, or the city center, south of the red light district. The building survives, but we're going to steer clear of the very loud, chaotic city center of Amsterdam, stay in the quieter areas. But that's the more important of the two companies who are having truly generated the majority of the wealth of the Dutch Golden Age, the importation of goods and spices from the East Indies. But these very big, spacious, beautiful hallways that surround us Nowadays, they're used as a caterings and events location, a lot of weddings here on the weekends. These are the halls where the central administration of the West Indies Company gather within the whole region of of Belgium and Netherlands. Used to be united most of history. They would gather in these halls to make the very big decisions of where to send ships for new lucrative spice trading routes, and also where to send ships for newly established Dutch colonies in the West Indies, which is the name they gave to the Caribbean islands and North and South American coast, the West Indies. But before I talk about the West Indies Company, and before I even talk about the Dutch East Indies Company, I do have to briefly touch upon who held the monopoly over the spice trade before the Dutch, which was the Portuguese. The Portuguese were the first seafarers, so to speak, that they circumvented the Silk Road. The Silk Road was the main importing network of goods and spices into Europe since the Middle Ages. But the Portuguese, they were the first to navigate south of Africa, which was a treacherous navigational route. Back northeast into the East Indies had quite the established network of trading routes and colonies with India, China, the Indonesian islands, Japan, and beyond. And Portugal, back in those days, was part of the Spanish kingdom. Portugal absorbed into the Spanish kingdom, so you have to remember the Portuguese and the Spaniards were actually fighting alongside each other against the Dutch during the 80 Years' War. Important little detail, this one right here, because as I mentioned earlier, back then, Amsterdam was known for being a small little port town famous for its fishing and shipbuilding industry. Too tiny little of growing industry. The shipbuilding industry itself, guys, here was actually growing at a faster and faster pace back then, specifically to meet the very, very high demands within the Hanseatic League, which was a network of Northern European countries and Baltic states that were trading with each other, the Hanseatic League. The Hanseatic League, they loved the Dutch soused herring so very much. So very much that Amsterdam was building more and more merchant ships, specifically to meet the very high demands of the Dutch herring. Are you guys big foodies like myself?
Yeah, I think so.
Not for fish?
I enjoy fish.
My goodness, guys.
I think so,
The
yes.
herring here, the Dutch herring. Have you guys heard about the Dutch herring? Have you heard about the Dutch? No one's heard about the Dutch herring? It's a very important part of Dutch history, also local Dutch food culture, because the Dutch, they found this very unique way to preserve their herring. Very different from Germany or Poland. They pickle their herring in vinegar, right? And the Scandinavian countries salt their herring, right? The Dutch, I swear by this, I think it's delicious stuff. I think it's really interesting too, the way they do this. The technique is, they don't pickle it, they don't salt it, they don't even smoke their herring. The Dutch actually ferment their herring. And the technique that they do this, get this, whenever they clean the fish, whenever they gut the herring, they actually leave the pancreas inside of the herring to brine, because the pancreas has these enzymes within it that naturally preserve the herring over long periods of time. I know I'm not selling it to you guys, but you wouldn't believe, despite the description, the process actually leaves a very delicate tasting product in the end. The fishiness is sort of neutralized in the fermentation process. It doesn't taste or smell fishy. Consistency is that of sushi pretty much. It looks raw, but it's not. It's fermented. Literally one of the healthiest things you can put in your body. I don't know if you guys know that much about local Dutch food culture, but Dutch food culture, very short conversation, Dutch food culture. Everything here is pretty much fried. You guys probably have tried the bitterballen. Have you guys tried the bitterballen? Okay, well, you'll find them in every cafe, every bar. The best way I can describe the bitterballen are fried gravy balls. Delicious sounding, right? And then after that, you have the fried pieces of cheese, the kaas stengels. The two famous cheeses in the Netherlands and Central Holland, where we're at, are the Edam and the Gouda, the Gouda. Those two famous cheeses. After that, you have kibbeling. Kibbeling is sort of the Dutch version of fish and chips, small pieces of fried cod, the kibbeling. And then after kibbeling, you have croquettes. And croquettes is just a big umbrella term that describes anything you want to ball up and fry. Isn't that amazing? It's just everything is pretty much fried. But the herring, on the other hand, is just proteins. Large doorways on every floor of the building as we bike there. We'll be surrounded by them when we get there as well. And to get there, we do have to bike up a pretty steep bridge, okay? So remember, first gear up the bridge. If it's too steep for any of you guys, please hop off your bicycle and walk it. That's fine. You guys will know which bridge I'm talking about when we get there. You guys ready to go?
Yeah.
Yep.
forgot to mention, we're going to be encountering quite a few obstacle courses, a lot of road works. That was one thing I forgot on a safety briefing. But guys, this is the example of the shark teeth. Shark teeth, we wait before we cross. So always look out for those.
Go. Thank you.
All right, guys, you know the drill. One after the other. Park your bicycles, lock your bicycles. Amazing work.
Did I have to?
Another sort of revamp, probably a 20th century revamping of a typical warehouse. They added extra windows on the rooftop of that one. Next to two typical 17th and 19th century warehouses. And if you guys look at the other side of the bridge, ooh, they just moved this. Get this. This red house is where they're dredging up. They're dredging up right now. They moved it here, and then they're going to move it back. It's huge. And they did it. It's huge, beautiful. And they did the same thing with this little white boat home 2 weeks ago. But guys, you notice further beyond that, the warehouses that we bike alongside, from a much better perspective. Please guys, watch out for the center. We'll have cyclists biking, zipping by us. Have you guys all seen the Central Station of Amsterdam?
Yes.
Kind of hard to miss if you guys walk anywhere near the city center. Giant monumental building, the Central Station. But the Central Station, get this, was a relatively recent addition to the city because the Central Station was actually built, get this, it was built on 3 man-made islands less than 130 years ago. Less than 130 years ago, relatively recent addition. But it was very controversial when they decided to move the train station from where it was originally to where it's at currently. Because if you guys think about it, the Central Station completely changed the whole cityscape of Amsterdam. It further extended Amsterdam's medieval city center outwards, and that's why it was so controversial. But I bring it up because the area right where the Central Station is currently resting at, that's where back in the 17th and 18th century and prior to that, that's where the wooden docks used to be, where the large cog ships, would come in from the East Indies and West Indies. They would dock right there to unload the bulk concentration of goods and spices onto the smaller vessels. Then the smaller vessels, of course, would navigate in and about the canal buildings of Amsterdam, and of course, come to this destination, the very first warehouse district of Amsterdam. Nowadays, if there wasn't all this construction work going on, very quiet, very idyllic, cute little neighborhood. But back in the 17th century, guys, this was a bustling, busy, loud, working class hotspot of the city. The canal surrounding us filled with the smaller vessels that were transporting goods and spices. And then Amsterdam, two of those warehouses that surround us. And get this, each and every one of these warehouses back then, these were huge ventures. The entrepreneurs, so to speak, back in the day, would fund the construction of a warehouse. And once they completed their warehouse building, they would actually rent out each and every floor of their warehouse building to tradesmen who actually lived on the warehouse floor, lived alongside the product they were specializing in. And one of the reasons why this right here is another one of my favorite hidden gems of the city is because these are the people and these are the industries that generated the wealth to put Amsterdam on the map during the Dutch Golden Age. You guys have to think about it. These are the workers, the dock workers, the sailors, the warehouse workers, the tradesmen, the merchants. These are the people that literally fueled the fire of the Dutch Golden Age. And the warehouses of Amsterdam, truly representative of that. The warehouse district of Amsterdam, very symbolic of that as well. Some people even argue, some historians even argue, that the very first modern day middle class was sort of created during the Dutch Golden Age because these working class people had generated so much expendable income for themselves. They began to line their walls with very expensive artwork, buy very expensive gold and diamond jewelry for their families and friends. So maybe so, but real estate value to this day that is unsurmountable. Just to give a little bit more context, recently advertised, I saw a 60 square meter apartment on the Prinsen Island. The island where we parked our bikes on is called the Prinsen Island. It's a more famous and iconic of the three islands. 60 square meters is about a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. Small, 700 square feet.
Yeah,
more or less.
about.
950,000 euros was the asking price, almost $1 million for a 2-bedroom.
But Bay Area prices.
Yeah, Bay Area prices. Yeah. And I know you guys are all experiencing the same, probably exploding real estate prices. Rent price for most of these buildings, most of these neighborhoods that we're biking through, for a studio apartment, a one single bedroom or studio flat, 40 square meters, it starts at 4,500 euros, 5,000 euros a month, goes upwards of that. Crazy stuff, right? But guys, if you guys will indulge me, I want to bring you guys to the other side of the bridge and show some more interesting real estate and architecture. You guys don't mind? Yeah, I saw them, but I think they're doing okay. Super.
Okay. Oh.
Good, very good. You guys know the drill?
Yes.
Super. Amazing work, everyone. Following all the rules, we're doing everything today. With all my guys, kickstand, lock your bicycles. Make sure you have your key on your person. Please do not drop your key in the canal. That would be bad news. And once you have your key on you, go ahead and leave the top of the bridge on the other side of the road.
So I'm having my identity.
So guys, what did you think so far of the Jordan neighborhood?
pretty.
So the restaurants and cafes, some of the art galleries, boutique shops. We bike down one of my favorite streets. There's like a tiny little section of the Jordan neighborhood. We're going to see a lot more of the Jordan as well as the next stop. But what's interesting about the Jordan, if you guys are history nerds like myself, you come back to the Jordan neighborhood in the daytime, right? And you try one of these cafes or brown bars. And the brown bars, if you guys are unfamiliar with what the brown bars are, it's sort of the Dutch version of Irish pubs, warm, historic, wooden little bars. That's why they're called brown bars. If you guys walk into a brown bar and it doesn't smell like decades old stale beer, it's not a real brown bar. So you come into these brown bars in the daytime or these cafes or a restaurant, and then you venture out into the Jordan neighborhood to visit one of the very unique features of the Jordan neighborhood. It's a very cool thing. The Jordan neighborhood is uniquely home to the great majority of Amsterdam's hofs and hofjes, which translates to the hofs and hofjes of Amsterdam. Very important word, the hofs and hofjes, because the hofs and hofjes literally translates into courtyards or little courtyards. But these courtyards, you get to go inside of, literally go inside these blocks. A lot of people assume, aside from the fact that you walk around the city center, there's not that much nature, there's not that much greenery. A lot of it is just hidden away, tucked away inside the courtyards of many of the blocks that we're biking in front of. But these historically protected courtyards in the Jordan, the great majority in the Jordan, but they're everywhere in Amsterdam, are surrounded by what used to be 17th and 18th century almshouses to house the unhoused widows and widowed families of Amsterdam. You guys, of course, have to imagine back in the 17th and 18th century, going out at sea for months and months and months on end with such dangerous and treacherous work that upwards of half of the sailors were broken off at sea. Upwards of half would perish at sea because it was such dangerous work. And of course, Amsterdam, or any other port city for that matter that was focused on the spice trade, was severely marked by this. A great number of widows and widowed families became unhoused. The red light district in the city center of Amsterdam, the famous red light district, dates back since the Middle Ages, but it was growing at a faster and faster pace, specifically attributed to the high number of deaths at sea. And so the Calvinist leaders of Amsterdam tried to mitigate this growing issue. They did two very important things, okay? As war was going on against the Spanish Catholics, they took over all the Catholic properties of the Dutch cities. They took over all the Catholic churches, converted the Catholic churches into Protestant churches. But more importantly than that, going down this canal, back into the Jordan, slowly, guys, watch out for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles.
It's like the two of them. May mirage dito. Oh man.
Super.
Fuck. Can we take a picture? Yeah.
Tighten up. You guys can stay on your bicycles. Stay on your bicycles, but tighten up. You hear me in the back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Before we go into the Volvo Park,
Wow. That's cool.